Alright, welcome back everybody. This video is in response to what happened in Nashville, and it's going to be more of a somber type of video, and there are some major concerns here. And this also will be in response to the plan that Democrats and Joe Biden has to ban assault weapons due to what recently happened in Nashville. And you'll see some of the hard questions that need to be answered are answered with what Hillary Clinton also established early on in her campaign when she was running for president. Never let a good crisis go unused, right? And as you'll see, some of the responses from Joe Biden after this terrible, tragic event and the way he was responding and acting in interviews and in public, you will see that this is just another thing that he can use in his assault weapon ban.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. God.
All right, now to go beyond that and the anger I have about that, I think it's important to now look at the data and see if what he proposes is a resolution to what is happening in our schools and in America. Now, one thing we tend to do as humans in a situation like this is jump to a promised one-shot solution and implement belief perseverance and the availability heuristic. Now, I've talked about those two things in previous videos, and the availability heuristic is basically what comes to mind quickly is deemed significant, and a lot of the times it's incorrect. So if you see a big event on the news and you say, how could this happen? And then they give you a solution, a cure-all, a one-time, a one-shot solution, and you go, yeah, okay, let's do that, let's implement that. Now you're operating out and off of the availability heuristic without any data. Now you're acting on emotions and not thinking things through. And the other thing I mentioned is belief perseverance. So belief perseverance is known as belief persistence, and it's the inability to change your own belief even when receiving the data and receiving the facts that contradict the belief about a situation. So with those things in mind, and you probably can see a lot of that happening recently, but with that in mind, let's take a look. Okay, so some of the best data we have is from the Uniform Crime Report, and this is from the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it's, I'm looking at the Crime Data Explorer. So here's how they calculate the data. I'm going to leave it right here. We'll go over it just a little bit, but the FBI, they define murder as the killing of one human being killing another human being. So they discount, or they don't include offenses, deaths caused by negligence, suicide, or accident, or justifiable homicides, or attempts to murder somebody. So this data won't include that. And I think that makes it even more significant to what we're talking about. So let's look at the data from 1985 to 2021. Usually these data takes a long time to calculate and, you know, go through reviews and those things. So we got it from 2021. And as you can see, one of the biggest spikes occurred in 1993, and it was on the uprise until then, and then quickly dropped off as far as homicides in general. And now when we look at data from the past 10 years, we can narrow things down to age and offender age, victim age, and you'll see the most crime of the offender is done from ages 20 to 29. And you'll see the highest victimization of the offended or the victims are ages 20 through 29 and 30 through 39, so 20 through 40. You might say, oh, okay, yeah, that's data, and this is just homicides in general. But yeah, okay, we're getting there. We'll go broad and then we'll narrow it down. So you'll see here in the murder victims by weapons section, you'll see that firearms in general, okay? You won't see shotguns as high in prevalence. You won't see blunt objects necessarily as high in prevalence. You will see some pretty high numbers for knives and cutting instruments. you'll see some significant numbers for personal weapons and other weapons or non-stated weapons. Now, what you will see is handguns are top of the list, the absolute top of the list. That is what is the highest in prevalence for murderers to use in their murdering. Now, there is another ambiguous number for firearms, and it says type not stated. So your guess is as good as mine there, and I know what people will jump to. They'll say, okay, well, that's assault weapons. Doesn't say that. But you will see something down at the bottom there. You'll see rifles, and you'll see that that's a very, very low number. When I say low number, that's still way too high. All right, I agree with you there. But it's lower than handguns. So where is our focus? And why are we not hearing about this? Again, it may be the availability heuristic and news sources telling you what will sell and what will gain them the most traffic on their news outlets. Or it will be of great benefit to a political party for their next election or their next big money deal or their next push for policy. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing from the data. But let's go on. Let's keep going. So that was a broad view of things. Now let's dive in. You'll see here from the Crime Prevention Research Center, they have some pretty significant data here on what stops an armed murderer. And as you'll notice, I'm not calling individuals who murder other people with firearms active shooters, because that's, again, I think a straw man argument that a lot of people are implementing so that anybody who is actively shooting a firearm is now considered a bad person. So I don't want this to sound bad, but I'm an active shooter, not in the same sense as I go out and murder people, or nor would I ever. But I do actively shoot my firearm. You see what I'm saying? But that aside, let's look at the data here. So from 2014 to 2021, and we got some totals here. So FBI active shooter incidents, 252, stopped by an armed citizen, total 11. Then you'll see the FBI percent stopped, so that's 4.4%. And then you'll see the Crime Prevention Research Center data, and they have some totals here as well. So all, 41. Missed by FBI, 25. So there's some data that was missed and not provided to citizens. And there's some totals that are misclassified by the FBI as well. So here's the news right here. Cases where armed citizens have stopped active shooter incidents by the Crime Prevention Research Center. Their data shows that the suspect, when the suspect fired first and armed citizens stopped them, 77. Suspect with gun, victim shot first, not included in totals. So here's some of the data that isn't included. And we also saw some of that on the Uniform Crime Report. And if you look at that more in detail, you can see a lot of missed data as well, as far as what they choose not to count. And then the suspect with gun but didn't shoot, 24. So now we're getting some numbers here. So here's the corrected total, 124. And this is the active shooter incidents stopped by armed citizens. And now we can compare that to the corrected total for active shooter incidents, 360. So now you're looking at 34%. So what stops an armed murderer? You can see in the data, armed citizens who are not murderers. And then there's that huge debate in everybody who wants to ban firearms in certain areas and certain places. Criminals will walk in anywhere with a firearm. They don't care. They're going to see a sign and say, whatever, I'm going to do what I want. They're criminals. They don't follow the law. They don't follow bans. Really what they're doing is they're going to stop citizens who have the ability, 34.4%, to stop an armed murderer. That's what's going to happen with that. So did armed citizens stop attacks in places where guns were allowed? It looks like it, and you can pause the video and look through all of this, but you're looking at about 50% average. Now, I'll leave a link for Biden's plan here, and you can look at this and tell me how effective you think this will be. But he's talking about regulating possession of assault rifles, a buyback program, which is stupid. They didn't own the firearms in the first place. They're not going to buy them back. He's talking about Charleston loopholes, hate crime, and you'll see this, and you'll see that the data does not connect with what he plans to do. This policy and this riffraff that he's coming up with is just going to restrict citizens' right to bear arms. That is the plan, and it's very, very easy to see when you compare the data. So, what's another thing that we do in the immediate situation when things like this happen? Well, without training and education, we turn and run. Here's what we need. We need trained individuals in the schools, whether that's officers or even faculty, teachers. Equip them with firearms and train them. Now, we train them to run toward the threat and handle the situation. And I know what's going to happen in the hearts of liberals right now. They're going to say, when did our schools become a prison? Teachers don't need to carry weapons in the schools. Kids shouldn't have to face this, and on and on and on and on without addressing the issue. You saw the data. Even if you ban all semi-automatic rifles and handguns and ban magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, all you're going to do is make it very difficult on the ones who have the ability to stop the threat. Now listen, if these things are banned, the law-abiding American will abide by this ban, these rules, as in all cases, in all circumstances where that is the truth, but not the criminal. The criminal is a murderer with a gun. They're criminals. They don't follow bans. And a lot of y'all need to hear this right now. Now, you'll hear them say, enough thoughts and prayers and ban those guns. In effect, what they're knowingly or unknowingly saying is ban the only thing that is stopping these criminals. All right, maybe not the only thing, but at a 1/3 percentage at least. In some of the data, you saw 50%. Here's another thing that some people have to hear is we're now in a world, like it or not, where this is happening. And I'm sorry we can't go back. Like some wishful thinkers would hope. The magic wand of an assault weapons ban will never work. No matter how hard the nose is scrunched and the heels are clicked together. That's not a solution. Now, if liberals, Democrats, and communists wanted safety in the schools, they would stop the stupidity. What stops a murderer with a gun? Gun bans? Obviously not.